So hello everyone and welcome on today's session. I hope that you can all see us very well and hear us very well. This webinar is in partial fulfillment of our requirements for our professional communication class. So today we will be playing roles of different guests that will tackle a specific issue. So in this webinar, we chose to discuss a very important issue that most of us have experienced or heard about in the workplace. Indeed, we will be talking about bullying and how it can affect individuals, the organization, how it can be identified, and how we can overcome this practice and prevent it altogether. My name is salma.d, and I will be moderating today's talk. I would like to first start by introducing today's guests, which all have a different perspective to offer on the subject. Sabrine will play the role of a psychologist. Then, Oussama will play the role of a legal expert that will provide us a different insight on the legal means through which we can prevent and eliminate bullying. Ayda will play the role of a former victim of bullying that will be here in order to share her personal experience with us. Finally, Abdelilah is our human resources manager, and he will explain to us how organizations deal with this topic. So now I would like to first welcome you again and tell you that we will be holding a question and answer session at the end. So we very much welcome your questions, interactions, and feedback throughout this webinar. So first of all, I would like to start by asking our psychologist about the exact definition of bullying.
For this brief introduction. So, bullying is normally verbal comments that mentally hurt or isolate working environments. In some cases, bullying can include negative repeated
I'm sorry, Sabrine, we don't seem to hear you. I'm sorry, there seems to be a little issue with our speaker. We cannot seem to hear you, so we will then move on to another question and perhaps come back to you at a later moment. Oussama, would you please introduce to us the actual legal definition of bullying, waiting for Sabrine to come back.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be live with you today. So basically, bullying and harassment falls into the same category under law. So they are defined as situations where worker or supervisor is systematically mistreated and victimized by fellow workers or supervisors through repeated negative acts. However, to be a victim of bullying, one must also feel inferiority in defending oneself in the actual situation. Also, bullying can become a legal issue if the conduct includes derogatory remarks such as racial or ethnic slurs or other inappropriate comments based on membership in a protected class. So basically, federal laws protect employees on the basis of age, sex, race, color, religion, national origin, and disability. State laws often include additional categories such as sexual orientation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Oussama, for this legal definition. Now I would like to move to Ayda. So as a former victim of bullying, could you please tell us more about your experience?
Well, thank you for having me today. Well, I have been working for the last 5 years in the same company, which was my first job experience. The department I used to work in was totally male-dominated. At first, everything was normal. They treated me like a rookie and they tried to help me in everything. But the situation gradually changed. The good working relationships I had with most of my colleagues started changing. I felt like they were becoming more distant, but I didn't emphasize on it too much. I thought it was just a normal cycle of relationships. However, I started noticing some weird behaviors from my colleagues. What I presumably accepted as work-related critiques started to be undermining and offensive. Superiors will not say anything obvious, but my peers made a lot of comments about how I didn't perform well or how I didn't understand instructions, or even how I created problems for the whole company. Soon, any problems that occurred were linked to me, even if I didn't have anything to do with them. The turning point was when I was assigned to work on a team for a project. The team leader ignored completely any opinions or constructive comments I had. Not only that, but he made it clear that neither he nor the rest of the team wanted me to work with them. At this point, I still didn't know from where all this hate came from, because most of the incidents will happen on a one-to-one basis rather than in public.
All right, thank you very much, Ayda, for your testimony. This was very interesting. However, I would like to ask you a further question. How did you know what the trigger for all of this hatred and persecution was?
Well, I discovered that it all started with some rumor. One of my male peers who wanted to have a relationship with me at the beginning of my job spread these rumors after I rejected him. He was basically saying that I got my job and the relatively high position I had unfairly, because he had very good relationships with the rest of my colleagues for a really good time. They believed him. Also, he had that seniority privilege that I didn't.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayda, for your experience and for sharing it with us. To all of you just joining us now, welcome. Please know that we are currently talking about bullying in the workplace as an issue that affects a lot of people and that we would like to discuss. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions on the chat bar, and we will be happy to answer them during our Q&A session at the very end. So for now, after we had Ayda, a former victim of bullying, share with us her experience, I would like to move to our Human Resources Manager, Abdelilah, in order to ask him about whether or not bullying is recurrent in the workplace.
Sorry, can I hear the question again? Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Please, can you? I didn't hear the question. Please, can you please repeat?
Yes, I'm sorry. So I just wanted to ask if bullying was recurrent in the workplace.
Yes, so I'm so happy to be here with you today. Bullying at work refers to all situations where one or more persons is subjected to negative behavior from others in the workplace. Many employees suffer from bullying, from exposure to bullying and harassment at work at any one time. It prevails in both private and public organizations and finds its victims among men and women, as well as among managers and workers alike. Studies also show that bullying in the workplace is a severe source of stress at work and may be crippling problem for those exposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this. In that case, and we got Sabrine back with us, so thank you, Sabrine, for joining us again. So then I would go back to the question that I asked you at the very beginning. Can you please redefine from a different perspective, since we only heard the legal one, what bullying is and what it entails?
Thank you, Salma. I'm sorry for the technical issue that happened. So normally observed as acts or verbal commands that could mentally hurt or isolate someone in the working environment. In some cases, bullying can include negative physical contact too. Bullying usually includes incidents and these tend to scare, irritate, or a specific individual or a gathering.
All right, thank you very much, Sabrine. Now I would like to further ask you about the negative impacts of bullying, both on the individual and on the workplace as a whole.
Of course, yeah. In fact, bullying could have a very harmful impact on individual mental health. Consequently, they might experience a range of effects such as inability of sleep, loss of appetite, loss of confidence, and feeling helplessness. The impact of bullying on the workplace includes increased stress, decreased productivity and motivation, corporate image and customer confidence, and deliver a very poor customer services.
Okay, thank you very much, Sabrine, for this introduction. Now, since you kind of introduced these several negative aspects that we have, I would like to come back to Ayda, our victim, in order to ask her about whether or not she relates to these. So, Ayda, do you feel like the impact described by Sabrine is relevant to your experience? What was the impact of bullying on you?
Well, I would like to say that I experienced every effect that the psychologist just described, because the workplace is an environment in which an individual spends 1/3 of the day. It really affects one's well-being. I began to experience insomnia, so I was always tired and without the energy to do any other activity. That made it worse because I didn't even have the power to go out and spend quality time with friends and family to forget about the bullying situation. With time, these symptoms translated into depression, and I even started to have suicidal thoughts. I didn't see any other solution to escape from it.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayda, for sharing this with us. Now I would like to go back to our human resources manager in order to ask him about what organizations from their own side do in order to help reduce or eliminate bullying in the workplace.
So the way to help reduce or eliminate bullying in the workplace, we have many ways. First of all, getting management to commit to a bully-free environment, establish and enforce clearly written policies about what is and not acceptable behavior. Second, in identifying potential aggressors by looking for bullying tactics and documenting unacceptable behavior. Third one, watching for signs of stress throughout the organization. The fourth one, including questions about bullying behavior in employee satisfaction surveys and exit interviews. The fifth one, evaluating data, for example, benefit costs, recruiting, and the productivity, workplace, and the accidents. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing these with us. But what about individuals? So, Ayda, now we heard about how organizations deal with bullying from their own end. But what about you? What did you do when you were confronted with this?
Well, once I started having those suicidal thoughts, I knew it was time to act. The first thing I did was to contact the Human Resources Department, but although the company had clear policies for these cases, in practice they weren't really applied, and Human Resources were not being proactive to solve the problem and punish the offenders. Thus, what I thought of doing was contact my union, and that's what I did. My union helped me and to bring a case against the person that started the rumors. And after winning the case, I searched for the job that I currently have, and which I am very happy with.
Thank you very much, Ayda. So we had two different perspectives on how to deal with bullying, both from an HR perspective and from an individual perspective. But now I would like to know what realistically one can do legally. So my question is to Oussama, our legal expert. How can we deal legally with bullying, and what are the means to eliminate it or fight against it?
Okay, Salma, for the legal means, we're gonna be talking about the legal means in Morocco. So even though like Moroccan law does not prohibit isolated comments and offensive teasing that are not very serious, it considers physical sexual harassment, especially in workplace, as a serious crime. The litigant, be it a man or a woman, can file a complaint that is submitted to the civil court. So, indeed, the Article 502 of the Moroccan Penal Code states guilty of sexual harassment and are liable to 1 to 2 years of imprisonment and a fine amounting to 5,000 Moroccan dirhams. Whoever harasses another person by the virtue of their authority, by issuing orders, threats, constraints, or any other mean in exchange of sexual favors. And also, there is also Article 40 that gives harassed people, like harassed employees, the right to leave their position and claim legitimate compensation. So the plaintiff needs to prove that the person who committed sexual harassment has used their power to ask for sexual favors. Here it shows like kind of it needs to feel like inferior to that other person. And also the plaintiff needs to demonstrate that the person accused is aware of their actions and that there is actual evidence of harassment in recruiting or giving a raise with vindictive intentions if the plaintiff refuses. Employers can play a pivotal role in protecting their staff against sexual harassment by investigating accusations and complaints with integrity and impartiality.
Okay, thank you very much, Oussama, for your legal advice on how to deal with bullying here in Morocco. I would like also to come back to Sabrine. Now that we've heard like these different perspectives on how to deal with bullying, how would you advise an individual to deal with bullying? And what are some tips for the general workplace to deal with this?
In case of being bullied, you should the company of a or a union member to bully directly or her. In addition to that, you should keep copies of any letters, memos, emails, and faxes received from the person. And especially do not retaliate. You may end up looking at the accused one and will most certainly cause confusion for the responsible for evaluating and responding to the situation.
Okay, thank you very much, Sabrine, for this. So we've talked about a little bit more about how we can deal with bullying. If you're just joining us, this is our topic today. We're just talking about bullying, how it affects individuals in the workplace. Please feel free to leave your questions and comments throughout, and we will answer them at the end of our session. We talked about how to deal with it, but now I would like to talk about how to prevent it. So I would like to talk to our HR manager in order to know how do you try to prevent bullying? How do you as an organization attempt to deal with it?
Yes, we have 4 strategies for prevention. First of all, adopt a clear anti-bullying and anti-harassment policy and distribute as part of the employee handbook. For example, define bullying and harassment, including sexual harassment in clear. Second, train employees at least once a year to explain what bullying and harassment are, the procedures to fill a complaint. Third, train managers and supervisors separately from employees on the above, as well as the procedures for handling such complaints. Fourth, monitor your workplace periodically, which is talk to employees and ask open-ended questions about the work environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Abdelilah, for your insight. Now I would like to move back to our psychologist, Sabrine. What are the warning signs that we as individuals and that the organization in itself need to look for in order to detect bullying.
Yeah, of course. Actually, the signs that indicate that you are bullied by a supervisor are verbal abuse. Bullying managers yell, swear, or shout at you on a consistent basis. Bully supervisors make mean comments or offer unjustifiable feedback. Also, intimidating. The act of intimidating someone might include threatening to fire you as a way to maintain power and control. It also might make threatening gestures. Spreading rumors. Bullies regularly make a huge effort to influence others to look awful. Thus, they may gossip with others about your work, your appearance, your well-being, or your own life. They even lie about you with a specific end goal to harm your reputation. Their goal is to make others believe you deserve the unfair treatment you are receiving. And finally, as isolate you at work. Bullying bosses might exclude you socially. They also might schedule meeting when they know you are on a vacation or have a conflict in your schedule. Additionally, they may make a important decision while you are out of the office, and they may go so far as refusing to allow you to attend work meeting or work lunches.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sabrine, for sharing this information with us. To all of you just joining us now, we are talking about bullying, and we have sort of introduced the topic, talked about means through which we can prevent it. But since the guests around the table are mostly Moroccans, we would also like to talk about Morocco and how it deals itself with bullying. So I would like to come back to our legal expert in order to ask him whether the Moroccan penal code should be changed in order to further address bullying.
So basically in Morocco, there is like kind of a law that punishes like sexual harassers. Like it exists on the paper, it is not like implemented. Therefore, it is implemented in some cases. So basically, the Moroccan penal law, it calls for severe sentences against rapists, but therefore has no like real legal provision for sexual harassment. There have been laws that have been agreed upon like in these recent years, but they are not implemented. And like Morocco has to implement laws that tackle bullying in the workplace because the majority of victims of bullying in the workplace are generally women. Because like women in the Moroccan society are often subject to bullying, whether it is in the workplace or in the public arena. So there should be also a sensitization that these types of laws exist, so women like could sue anyone that like harass them or bully them. And employees have to be aware that they have the right also to sue anyone. Like if it's a man that is being harassed by a woman or like a woman harassed by a man, like it's the same. And like generally Morocco is still behind in terms of law, but Morocco, like in Morocco there are NGOs who gather legal experts that may like help a victim of such acts. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, Oussama. Now to wrap up this session and allow time for our viewers to ask us questions, I would like to go back to Ayda, our victim of bullying, and tell us, given these limitations that we've talked about, both in the Moroccan legal code, but also just generally from people's mindset, what would be your recommendations to someone facing bullying in the workplace?
Well, my main recommendation is to speak up. Never accept the situation and try to live with it. You have to seek help to end the story. There are many sources of help. You just need to be strong and do not abandon the case. Even if the human resources department cannot punish the offenders because of lack of proof, like my case, it will still be helpful as a record for when you decide to proceed legal action. And another recommendation is to share your situation with the persons that are close to you, because they are important factors that will offer the moral support that you will be needing in that situation. And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayda. Thank you, Sabrine, for being our psychologist throughout this webinar. Thank you, Oussama, for being our legal expert and providing us advice on legal means. Thank you, Ayda, for your strong testimony. And thank you, Abdelilah, as our HR manager, providing us with means on how to deal with bullying in the workplace. Now, if there are any questions that you would want us to take, please feel free to comment and we will gladly answer.
I think we should start with the question that has been asked like by Mr. Omar in the in kind of the beginning of this webinar. Like the question of Mr. Omar is like, how can we differentiate between bullying and just like a motivational speech that may seem a little bit harsh?
So I personally, if I were to answer this question, I would say that bullying is a speech that is not meant to be constructive. It is a speech that is meant precisely to undermine the person, weaken it, and make it feel like it is worthless. So it is not a speech meant to encourage the person, but rather to make it feel like it is worthless and not able to overcome whatever obstacles can send it on its way. So I think it's a very nuanced topic, but people should be caring more about the aim and the intention behind the speech. So sometimes bullying can not be just hate speech. It can also be fake speech. It can also be people that are trying to give you false advice just to bully you, because that is also part of bullying. So I think that it's important to understand more bullying as a holistic concept that can take various forms. But thank you very much, Omar, for your question. It's a very important one indeed.
I would like to add.
Yes, Sabrine?
I would like to add to what Oussama said. Actually, the difference, as I said in the definition, bullying is a repeated act that's repeated. It is being repeated too many times and in the same consistency. So could be a very huge difference between just a speech and being bullied.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answers. And now moving on for the next question of Miss Wafa. So basically she asked, in case I have been bullied by my colleague and I do not have a proof for that, what should I do? Okay, I'll give you an insight for that. Basically, if you have been bullied, you have to prove it according to the Moroccan law. But therefore, you can gather evidence, if you have text messages or record the person if he or she's bullying you, and then you can go for special through legal experts to have an insight, to follow up the steps within the law in order to sue that person that have bullied you and harassed you. Anyone wants to add something more?
I think you said the most important thing.
Okay, so now we have another question of Miss Yasmin. So her question is do you think bullying differs in a cross-cultural dimension, and what are the standards or factors that determine if an act is indeed bullying? Anyone wants to tackle this question?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, so she said do you think bullying differs in a cross-cultural dimension, and what are the standards or factors that determine if an act is indeed bullying?
Well, if I may answer this question, I think that this is very much true, and thank you, Yasmin, for your question, because it really is a fact. Bullying differ across cultures, and so for people that might not be aware or culturally sensitive, they might not know that what they are facing is not bullying, or that it is indeed bullying. Let me explain myself. For example, you can go to a more individualist culture, and you are from a collectivist culture. the transition might make you feel like you are being bullied because people there might not respect you based on your status or based on your family belonging, but rather just because of the person that you are. And so using the same arguments or talking the same way as you would talk back home would perhaps be confronted with harsh responses or what you would deem as harsh responses. So therefore, it is very important to be culturally aware and to not only adapt our speech to other cultures in order to prevent them from thinking that they are being bullied, but also ourselves to be more sensitive and more aware that not every harsh response or rather unusual response is necessarily bullying.
Anyone wants to add something else? Okay, like just like to tackle like Mrs. Jasmine question. So basically, if you mean by cross-cultural dimension, like if it differs, so basically yes, yeah, like bullying differs like from a country to another one. Like here, like talking about Morocco, we can see like that bullying and harassment occurs like many times in a public space, and I think you are aware of that because like you are a woman, you may have been subject like to harassment. And like if you want like the standards or factors that determine if an act is indeed like bullying, I think like something that you don't like something offensive and aggressive, that means that you have been bullied and harassed. Like that's like your own, it remains like your own judgment of the act. Okay, so now we're gonna move like to the like another question that has been asked by Miss Ahlam. She said like she asked how about the long-term consequences of bullying. That's like the first part of the question. It can definitely affect a person's performance at work. So how to deal with it?
I would like to answer to this question from personal experience. So bullying has definitely long-term consequences because it affects the psychology of one's being. So, for example, for my case, I have to follow a psychologist to deal with the problems that I had and to prevent the problems to occur another time. It leaves you with the fear of bullying happening again, and you not being able to tackle it on your own. So psychologists and psychiatrists are definitely an important factor that you need to address once you are suffering from bullying, to build your confidence back and be more aware of the signs that someone is bullying you. And for the second part, yeah, how to deal with it, it's basically you need to follow a psychiatrist and a psychologist, because we often think that once it ended, that's the end, but that's not the case. It often affects in the long term, as you said.
Okay. Thank you very much, Oussama, for moderating this Q&A question and answer session. If there are no more questions for the moment, I think it will be time for us to wrap up this webinar. So again, I would like to thank our viewers for their interest in our subject, and please still feel free to comment after we've gone offline, and we will gladly answer all your queries, and if you have feedback, we will gladly take hold of it. So once again, thank you for watching us. Thank you to our guest speakers. We remind you that this is for our professional communication class with Dr. Agnaou, and this was a simulation and that our guests played different roles. So thank you very much and have a good day.